Today we interviewed Alvin Wong. He's a nurse up in Canada, our first Canadian guest. So go show him some love. He talks all about his experience in the nursing field, some burnout, some disagreements with management, and why he invested in real estate. And I think he goes pretty deep into his first few deals.
Yeah. And it's cool because, I mean, a lot of the stuff going on in Canada is similar to the US. Like, I feel like there's a lot of parallels, but there were some interesting differences that he got into.
And I heard one time that the United States, certain policies mirror what Canada has done 5 years ago. So whatever Canada is doing now potentially is going to come down to the US at some point.
Which could be good or bad.
Like it or not. Yeah.
Welcome to the Investing RN podcast. Today we are joined by Alvin Wong. He's a nurse and investor from Toronto. What you said is Toronto. What was the other part of that?
So Toronto, province of
Canada?
Ontario.
Toronto
Canada.
province.
Canada's our country.
It was the Ontario. I know what country it's in.
Ontario, province of Ontario.
It was the Ontario that I was missing. Yeah. So invested in real estate out there. ER nurse, bariatric nurse. A lot going on. Sounds like started investing in October of 2020 after a little turmoil in the nursing field. So a lot going on today. Do some Spartan races and climbing mountains. Kind of got a hand in everything, it sounds like. So welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Yeah. So kind of tell us, obviously, well, I don't know. Are you from Canada? And then how'd you get into nursing?
Yeah, I am from Canada. I'm originally from our capital, Ottawa, but I moved down to Toronto after I got laid off as a registered nurse in the emergency department, which is something to this day I find very boggling that we need nurses. But anyways, it is what it is. And my pivotal moment was when I was moving back to Toronto. I was gathering all my belongings, and here's this book that everyone's all familiar, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I just thought I have so much time in my hands, and I've never touched the book. It was left dusted in my shelf, so I decided to read it while packing, and it just changed my mindset. And it made me realize that the next time if I ever get laid off or something happens to my nursing job, everything now that I think about it, any jobs are just not protective, and in order to protect yourself, you need to be financially independent. So I've decided to look for every investment vehicle, Bitcoin, stocks, all those investment vehicles, and real estate just made sense to me the most.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to get started. So I decided to go to networking events, random networking events, talk to investors here and there, got referrals. And I realized that, I'm not ready to go on my own, like sink or swim, buy a property. I think I need knowledge and I need education. So I found a coach, learned from my coach for 3 years. I've been with him for 3 years now, but being around him for a good 3 months allowed me to give me confidence to start investing into real estate. So October the 1st, 2020 was when I started to buy my first income investment property, and I picked up a duplex, and I picked it up for $249,000. And after renovating, using the BRRRR strategy, I end up getting a refinance of $430,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's when I realized the power of the BRRRR strategy and how I executed utilizing real estate as my investment vehicle. And from there, I took all the money that I was able to refinance and I brought it to another city, which I'm now currently investing in, Sudbury, Ontario. And I just from there, I just bought 5 more houses in this 3 years span.
Nice.
Yeah.
Also, that's a very, very quick trajectory. It sounds like it all started from having a mentor and a business coach and all that. But before we dive into all the specifics of Canadian lending and real estate investing in Canada specifically, talk to us a little bit about your nursing career. I know you said that you were kind of laid off and that changed the trajectory of your investing career. But talk about a little bit like what got you into nursing and what your first few jobs looked like inside the hospital.
Yeah. So when I first graduated from my my degree, and we university, we call it here in Canada. I know you guys call it college over there. So after
Yeah.
4 years of nursing, I had this euphoric aspect that I'm gonna save lives and and just do good things in my community. For the first, I would say for the first 6 months, it was like it was all moment where it was great. I'm learning a lot, but then I realized how we're always shortage of nursing. At least that's how I felt in here in Canada. But talking to other nurses, networking over my 9 years of nursing, it's not just Canada alone, like not just my province, Ontario, but it affects the whole entire nationwide. And I'm also hearing from U.S. counterpart as well too, especially during the COVID. But anyways, not to dive too deep into that, I felt very like burnt out. I felt like there wasn't enough time for us nurses to take care of our patient. We're always scrambling around. The night shifts are very brutal. We there's a reason why our circadian rhythm is it's just so messed up to the point where you feel like half of your life got chopped in half. That's how I felt like. So definitely for sure, like nursing is a very rewarding field, but it's also very it can also be very the burnout rate is very high. I do realize that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of burnout, I mean, I know prior to, hitting record here today, we were talking about just, back injuries, something as simple as back injuries, which is not simple if you experience it. But,
Yes.
I did ER nursing as well. And not to say that we're the only ones doing the lifting, but definitely as a male nurse in the ER, anytime there was a combative patient or, a heavy lift or anything like that, I was getting called to the bedside. And that, in addition to, just dealing with management, being overworked, understaffed, all those things factor in when you're talking about burnout. So it's the same here, and I'm in California at least, so we have patient ratios. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit more about the burnout, and then also in Canada, what do you guys have in place in terms of patient ratios and those kinds of things to protect the nurses?
Yeah. I mean, the patient. I'm glad you talk about patient ratio. I think the hospital do try their best to like have a balanced ratio, like on a typical medicine, or we're talking about inpatient here in Canada. In a typical inpatient, we can have 4 patients in daytime. That's a 12-hour shift from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. For night shift, it will be around 6 patients. So, but when it comes to nurses, are there's a shortage of nurses. It can be anything. It can be sick calls, burnt out, or other factors that can cause that. Then someone has to take on a little bit more of the workload, right? So that becomes what becomes really heavy, and that's exactly what's. I don't have true statistic for this, but there are in our Ontario union, Ontario Nurses Association, they do broadcast some of the staggering numbers, and it can be very frightening.
Mm.
So definitely for sure, like in order for us to, the way how Canada's working right now is that they're trying to get more international nurses to come in to fill in the gap. That's what I'm hearing lately, the trend. So they are trying to do something, but the speed of it getting people to come in to fill in these shortages is it's still a challenge in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine how the visa process there's gonna be a huge delay if that's kind of their end game plan. I can see that taking a while, and nurses are gonna have to, I guess, deal with the short ratios and short staffed and until this problem is fixed. And yeah, we, like Colin said, we were talking before we hit record, and this is not something that we see getting better anytime soon, unfortunately.
Obviously this podcast that we're doing, like, the goal is to empower nurses, but we also are trying to provide a resource where nurses can have like something on the side where they don't have to work these crazy long hours and all these overtime shifts and contribute even more to the burnout. Because I think that's a huge factor in the burnout, is you're just trading all your time for the money, and the money's good, but it's like you're working so much. So it's tough because it's like, I'm out of nursing right now, and that's not helping, the nursing shortage. So it's like, yeah, what is
Yeah.
the answer? Because it doesn't seem like management has the answer. And I think if we could create this environment where nurses can be, supported and satisfied with their work, then people might be more willing to stay, knowing that, like, hey, I can work my 3 days a week, and then I can like supplement it with this other income and not have to just kill myself working all this time. Do you guys have the same kind of like work structure there in Canada in terms of the 312s? I mean, it sounds like, nights and weekend, or day and night shift is about the same. So is that all about similar?
Yeah. Yeah, it's what you're talking about is very as we call the traditional schedule. The one that I remember enjoying is called the master schedule. This is like 2 days on, 2 days off, and 2 days day shift, and then back, and then 2 nights after that follow up. So that's 4 days in a row, and then you'll get like 5 days off, and at some point in the calendar year you have like 6 days off.
Hmm.
So this is the great part. Like if you're single and you don't have family, this works really well. You just basically accumulate all your vacation. You continue, and then at some point in your calendar year, you have that 6 days off. Grab those vacation and plug it into the weekend, and now you have like 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's a good thing about it. I mean, you can definitely manipulate the schedule like that and create these like
Yeah,
blocks
yeah,
of time. And that's again, that's kind of what we're getting at. It's like we're not just trying to say like everybody needs to leave nursing. We just want you to be able to like be empowered to do it in a way that benefits you the most, I guess.
We want everybody to be able to have a choice.
Yeah.
And that's kind of,
yeah.
that's where financial independence becomes so powerful.
Yeah.
And so you gave us a little quick overview earlier. Did you look at any investing strategies before 2020, or was it until you said you were laid off that you decided to look into it a lot more in depth?
Yeah, so I think like many other people, to be fair to say, we all invested into mutual funds because that's what everyone always tells us. In my case, my family.
Right.
And then when you go to your banks, at least our big banks here in Canada, they, the advisors always talk about like you should start investing, and it's always in the back of my mind, at least all the nurses. For myself, it's a great idea to invest. You have your pension, and then you have your salary, and you're missing one more vehicle, which is investment. And the only thing I know that is so accessible for us to know is like the mutual funds. But when you get into like once you get into a realm of investing, you start to realize like there are more other options of investment vehicles, and you start to play around with it, and you start to learn, and you start to make the better decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what, in the mutual funds, that's down here in the States, I had a financial advisor, and he was always recommending like, oh yeah, put a bunch of money in mutual funds, put a bunch of money in stocks, and then never look at it until you're ready to retire. And that, like, I did that for a little while, but it never felt right, I guess. I don't know. Like, I feel like I wanted a little more control of my money. I wanted to be able to increase the income from it quicker. And I mean, that's once we found real estate that it started churning a little bit quicker and a little bit quicker. And it makes a lot more sense to put all my retirement into that at this point in my life. I mean, who knows what that'll look like in the future, but right now that's where we're at.
Yeah. I think it was just, and for me too, like I was doing the 401k, didn't know much about it. It was just like, yeah, max out, the hospital contribute. I'm like, okay, cool. Like whatever. And it was growing. And I was like, so I'm doing a good thing. Like it's not when you, or what is it? It's not how much you put in, but how early you start doing it. So I was like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah.
But then like, we stumbled into real estate, and it was like, it just made sense to me. It was like, oh, okay. Like this is not as much of a gamble as I imagined other types of investment being. So, and then you mentioned, when you were laid off, you had to move, you started getting into the real estate and it sounds like early on you got a mentor, and that's something that we recently invested in, but this is like, a few years into our investing. And I'll admit, like, even for me, I was a little skeptical. Josh was kind of pushing more for a coach, and I was a little more skeptical about spending that kind of money. So what was it that kind of motivated you to invest that up front?
Yeah. So for myself, this is my personal experience. I came from a background in healthcare, and we've never really been taught how to invest at all.
Yeah.
You give us a heart, you give us a lungs, we can dissect it just by thin air. We can tell people how it works and function, but you tell us to like what is mutual fund, what is all these other investment vehicle, we're stumped. So for me, I'm entering a new realm of a different profession. I'm learning something new, and so when it's just like going to university. That's how I saw it. You're learning from somebody, you're learning from a teacher, you're learning from a professor. You're starting from new, and it made so much sense for me that rather than me falling forward, and get into so much issue because how purchasing a house is one of the biggest investments you'll ever do in your lifetime. And that's just very extremely scary to most people, especially for me, as when I first started. I can do the sink or swim method, but do I really want to do it? Because here in Ontario, where I invest in, it's very dangerous because of the tenant is more favorable than compared to landlord. So if you have a bad tenant, it takes at least 1 year to have this person to be out. That's how bad it is. And the worst part is, if this tenant decides to fight you, then he can stall additional 3 more months. So now we're talking about a year and 3 months now. There goes all your cash flow.
Yeah.
But to me, I wasn't thinking about cash flow. I just want to get in. So I didn't want to make too much brutal mistakes. I want to have someone at least to handhold me just for at least one project, so that I can get the groove going. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because if I didn't had an experienced investor looking after me and watching me how I think and do the process, and listening to himself talk about like why you should do this, why you should do this, like it gave me more confidence to invest, and then also allowed me to execute faster what I wanted to accomplish.
And this coach, how did you find this coach, and what did the structure of like the coaching look like? Was it a time period that you hired him for, or was it just what was the structure of that? Or yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Or I was going to say, or was it just a mentor that you agreed to work with for a little while, or was it something a little more official?
Yeah, no, it was official. I just it's a 1 year program, and I was going to these networking events, and I was asking investors if you can this is what I want to do. I think I need more assistance. I need more help, and then I came across a referral from an investor that I really look up to, and I asked him if he wanted to be my mentor, but he's like, I'm not ready at my stage, but I can refer you to my coach. And then that's how it all started. It's just all like it just all happened so coincidentally well in my favor. Like I went to this networking event, I had no properties whatsoever. Everyone was all talking about real estate, and I just came up to each and every one of them and met this individual that's been in the game for a long time, for actually 2 years, and he has like 20 properties. He's a great guy, and I just approached him and say, hey, help me out. So since then,
Yeah.
I've been with this mentor for now 3 years. Yeah, I've never looked back. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah.
Well, clearly it's working out if you're with him 3 years later. So, but we want to dive into your first property. You said you got a duplex, and you did the BRRRR strategy on it. So can you dive into the numbers a little bit better? You said you bought it for 249. I don't remember what you said.
249. 249. Yeah. 249.
And then how much money did you have to put into it before you refinanced?
Yeah. So renovations, it was 80,000, and then we put in holding costs. It was around that time around 5,000, and refinanced it after but at that time it was the market was very good. Okay, we're talking about October the 1st, 2020. I refinanced it in like 4 months, and it came up to 430. So it covered all my renovation. It covered all my holding costs. That's like your utility you have to put in your and also like your lawyer fees, all that stuff. And then whatever the leftover is, I use that, and I just repeat the process. That's why it's called the BRRRR strategy.
Yeah, that's how we got in. Our first property was a BRRRR strategy, and as little as we knew at the time, it ended up working out really good, and we were able to refinance all of our original capital out and do it again. So it sounds like that's exactly what you did. So what did you do with that money that you got back? You put it immediately into a new property, and what did that look like?
That's correct. So I went to pivot to a new strategy, to a different market, because I started to notice that the original city that I wanted to invest in didn't have that potential to buy another property that's like 249. I wanted to buy like multifamily. That's what I want to stick to. That's the strategy I've always liked. And yeah, it was getting, and Canada is a little bit more expensive compared to the States. I know that. Like our average here in Newmarket, which is like at least 30 to 40 minutes away from Toronto here. It's the average home price is like 700,000 for a single family home.
Oh wow!
So that's why.
That's
So
like
eventually, this yeah, eventually the city where I invest in, like a very small town, got it grew so fast to the point where it almost caught up to a nice market like Newmarket, and it just didn't make sense anymore. So I had to pivot my strategy to another tertiary market. You know, so that's when I landed into another tertiary market called Sudbury, Ontario, and when I got my second property, it was a semi-detached. It was also 249, and it had already 2 units in there, so I didn't need to do too much renovation. It was like cosmetic, cosmetic for your listener who's new, just changing kitchen paint, um, clean up the nice deep clean, changed light bulbs, like minor stuff. And then you refinance it afterwards. And so 249, and I was getting the same rent as the original market I was doing. So there was three bedrooms upstairs and then one bedroom downstairs. The three-bedroom was rented for at that time 1900, and then downstairs was rented for 1020. So the rent was great. It was like exactly the same thing as what I'm getting from the other market. So, and also the houses were cheap there that I can get in multifamily. So it made perfect sense to pivot my market quickly. So I had the team. I just need to build a new set of team, which is like a general contractor and etc. So it made total sense to move forward, and then that way I can scale faster. And that's exactly what happened.
And so with that, I know you mentioned using other people's money for the first property, but in addition to that, like the lending in Canada, is that similar to what we got, where it's like 25% down for a commercial property, 20% down for traditional? Do they have like other structures where you could do like FHA type thing if you're living in it? What does that look like there?
Yeah, in Canada, so I've been only doing residential. So you guys are doing commercial, right?
Some, yeah.
Yeah, little mix of both. We're moving just to commercial
Okay.
now.
So what I'm talking about is residential. So residential multifamily. So in Canada, anything 2 units and up to 4 units is residential. Anything more than 4 units, so fiveplex and up, is considered commercial. So different landing space. I focus on the residential. So for us is we put in 20% down if you're investing. If it's a primary resident and you decide to do house hacking, which is something I wish I could have done, but because of the distance of where I'm investing, the CRA, which is our Canadian government revenue agency, will chase after me if I say that's my primary residence if I'm just investing in Sudbury. So that didn't work. So I had to put down 20%. So 20%. But if it was primary, it would be 5%. Yeah.
Okay. And you said you're using other people's money. So what structure do you use for that? And how do you guarantee? I don't want to say guarantee, but how do you eliminate the risk while you're using other people's money?
So they have to do their own due diligence, and every lender has their criteria to lend, and my role is to be transparent as much as possible. So that's the first step. A lot of them ask that they want to see my portfolio and they want to see my track record. So I do present them my portfolio of all my properties. They're all cash flowing. So they just want to make sure that these properties, in case that I default, they can take at least one of my properties like that. So that just gives them extra reassurance. If I coming up to a lender saying that you have all these properties. So I have, like I mentioned, I have 6 properties. They can ask, they can grab 2 of them if they want to, in part of their agreement. So that's how we structured it. It's more like and also credential. So my credential is basically how I've been marketing myself. So I'm very active in social media. So and they follow it just to see who is this guy, and also see the power of his network. So my network is pretty large in Canada, and I do have some in the States, fellow nurses and also investors. So that's another way to reassure my lenders. Also, they want to check what I do for a living. So I mean, I'm a nurse, so lenders love nurses, not just banks, but private lenders. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Just with the kind of the way you started, like being laid off and then jumping into this thing, did you get another
Yeah.
job pretty quickly? Like, what were some of the challenges you faced in this transitionary period? Is transitionary a word? Transitional.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Sure. You know what? It's not about. I think there's so many nursing jobs out there. I found my job in less than 2 months. So it's. I don't think that's the issue for nurses finding a job. Is finding a job that you're passionate and you love. So I love the emergency department. I love my trauma settings, but I was kind of a little bit scarred after what happened.
Hmm.
When you get laid off, it's not a good feeling. So I kind of didn't want to be in the bedside anymore. So I decided to go a different route in nursing. But yeah, it's so finding a job for nurses, to answer your question, is not an issue in Canada here. In fact, if it was, I already have so many plans that if this doesn't work, then I can always work for the go down to the States, or go international, like go to Dubai, So there's plenty of job in nursing. So that's why nursing is such a great field. You'll never need to be worried about finding a new job, but finding a passionate job that may be a little bit difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say too. So it's a couple of the things you've mentioned was using the other people's money. You've done some capital raising, you've done some joint ventures, but one of the things I noticed was the vendor take back. Can you talk a little bit about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, the vendor take back. So what they would have to do is they'll have to have put a second position into the mortgage. So that means the vendor will be the one who's putting upfront the money to prove to the bank that actually you yourself, you have the money to fund it, but the 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 seller is the one that puts in the funds, and then you basically you in return, you'll have to give them how you guys agree to a certain time frame, how long you're gonna borrow the money from the seller, and also the interest. So that's how it works. So it's just a different creative strategy. Like what I talk about in the show notes when I sent it out to you guys. It's just there's so many creative strategies. There's so many wonderful ways. It doesn't have to be just your money. There's VTB, vendor take back. There's OPM. These are creative finances to secure a home. And then but you have to do your due diligence. You have to make sure that by the time you either, if you're doing a flip, sell the property, make sure you have enough money to pay back the vendor take back the seller, or give it back to the bank like that. Or if you're doing the buy and hold strategy like me, make sure when you do the refinance, it covers all the funds, so you can stop the process of keep on owing the lenders.
Yeah. So vendor take back, that sounds a lot like what we've done on a couple of our properties. It's called seller carry here. So it sounds very similar to that situation.
Okay.
But as you said, like when you're using other people's money, you said that they have to do their own underwriting. I'm sure you're doing your own underwriting. If you're using any type of bank funding, they're doing their own underwriting. So by the time you get any of these properties, it's been underwritten by 3 professionals who have a really good idea of what they're doing. But that still doesn't eliminate all the risk that's involved. Have you had any properties that haven't gone exactly how you had planned and underwritten them? And can you talk a little bit about that?
I think there are some with today's market. I think what happened is a good example is today's market. Back in when I first started till now, the interest rate has gone through the roof. I remember the interest rate were like 2% at one point. And everyone was making money. But that's the thing. Whenever I purchase a property, I always be very conservative. I would actually go above the projection of what current interest rate is. So with myself, I remember when it was 3% at that time. Um, I would project it to be 6%. So that's how I would buffer it. And also, you always have to buy properties that are discounted. There's a reason why we investors always have to get properties at a discounted rate, is because this is a perfect example. When the interest rate are higher than the projections, at least you have some buffers and you can weather the storm, as like what we are doing today, and make sure the rents are good. So right now, what I projected back then when it was 3%, and even I projected to be 6%. It definitely now is now 7%, so it's a little above. You have to be very comfortable in a situation like today's scenario. So obviously, there are some of my properties are performing well, but for the ones that aren't performing, we're talking about negative. We're talking about like a negative cash flow of like 100 or 200. But because I have a nursing job, that's helped cover those 200 losses.
Yeah.
Yeah, underwriting for 6% a couple of years ago. That's almost unheard of. Is that something that your business coach advised you to do? Because that's not something that most people were doing down here, especially back a couple of years ago. They were underwriting for like 1.5% higher, but I don't think anybody was underwriting for 3% higher than what rates were a few years ago.
Yeah. So you definitely have to be very careful when you borrow, like private lending and all that stuff. Always make sure you project it just a little, like be more conservative. That's what I'm saying. And moving forward in this economic times, you definitely have to factor it into a lot of like continued interest rate. You never know we don't have a crystal ball to see how much more interest rates going to be happening. At least in Canada, we're all like focusing on the Bank of Canada to see what their projection is. And Bank of Canada is really looking into the states. Whatever the states does, we will follow. That's how it is. So we follow the states very carefully as well too. So we're always
funny.
So whenever I purchase a property, I always want to buffer it even more now. So now I'm doing 8% and sometimes 8.5% now.
That's funny that you say that about the Bank of Canada, because I heard a podcast. It was at least 2 or 3 years ago where there was this investor up in Canada who said usually we do things first and then the States does it second. So he models his investing in the US after the Bank of Canada. So it's kind of funny how things have like switched a little bit now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, like we don't want our currency to be underperformed compared to the States, right? So that's why it's very important that Canada follows what the States do. Now, I mean, everyone has different philosophy, but at least for me, to be conservative, I will follow I follow what the States, because right now, at least, Bank of Canada we're so very close by, right? We're just down up north to the border, right? So whatever happens to the States is going to happen to us. So we're very much tied into everything, the both of us.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep asking these questions, and my cousins from Canada are just going to be so disappointed in me. But so in one of the topics that's pretty common with us in interviewing nurses, and we've interviewed some CRNAs, is student loans. I don't know. Do you have student loans after going to university, not college, sorry, but university in Canada? And if so, is that something that you tried to tackle right away, or did you kind of let those ride so that you could invest that money in real estate?
So I've been very blessed. I never had student loans. That all thanks to my family. My family always believed in that one of their roles is that as parents to make sure that they saved up enough of money so that they can bring their children to get good educations. In the beginning, in my childhood, I never understood why my parents were so frugal. I think that's where I got my frugality from. You have to understand, my family came as an immigrant from the city of Hong Kong in China, and moving to a new country. They understood the importance of having their children be able to be brought up so that they can have a better life than they did. So throughout my whole entire life, we were always saving. We were so frugal. All my neighborhood will get like Power Ranger toys and everything, and here I am like trying to I want one, but I can't. And I always question why. But now when I grow up, I finally realize that why frugality is so important. Obviously, you want to enjoy life, but you also need to live below your means, especially if you're investing, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. You have to understand the power of money and how it works, because money can be very extremely lucrative, but it can easily be taken away from you if you don't watch how you spend.
Yeah.
That's a theme that we see a lot on people that we talk to. Is it's like wealth. You can make $500,000 a year and be extremely opposite of wealthy, not extremely wealthy. But you can also make like a lot less and be very wealthy, because wealthy is how much money you spend compared to how much money you make. It's not only how much money you make.
Yeah. To refer back to your questions about like student loans and everything, I'm here. Canada is no different in the States. We have a large amount of debt, like student debt. Like some of my doctors that I'm really close with, they're still paying off their student debt. And how are they gonna save, if they're not able to pay off the debt, you know what I'm saying? So so I do understand where your questions come from. Unfortunately, I'm very lucky. I'm extremely lucky that I never really got the I'm very lucky I never had student debt, but I can imagine what happens if I had student debt. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, at least faster. I would have been dragged off a bit, but I know I would have found a solution, because we're entrepreneurs. We'll find a solution to pay off that debt, but it'll be a lot more challenging and a lot more slower, but that's okay. We will get to that point.
Yeah.
That's right. I love what you just said about entrepreneurs. Like, you'll find a way. Like, some people have it in them to where it doesn't matter what roadblocks they encounter, they're going to figure out something. So talk about what your day looks like now, and how because you're still working in the hospital. So how do you pair that? How do you pair that with everything that you're doing in investing? And how do you have time to do anything else? Golf or whatever else you do?
I think one of the best, I think nurses are some of the best investors. I'll start off with that. And I'll tell you why, because we are trained to be put in a situation where a lot of people, at least the general public, think, there's no way you could have done it. Like, you have one person right there that's getting a heart attack. You have one person over there asking for water. You have one person there over that they need to go to diagnostic test. And you have one person over there that needs to fill in a doctor's order, or else the doctors will scream at you, So you're juggling with all this stuff. So it's already ingrained into us that we're very good multitasker. And with multitasking, that's a good skill, but we also are problem solver, and we always talk about critical thinking, because it's true, right? We're also helping our physicians to dissect the cause of the problem, right? So we're put under pressure to do all that stuff. So I think for registered nurses we are so natural, like it's just ingrained into us. If not, it will eventually ingrain into us that we have to we're very good time management. So why I said this is because it's very relatable to entrepreneurship. So with myself, I still practice, and I still go to the emergency. I still practice, but very casually, just to fill in that acute care setting bug that's my passion. It's always been my passion. But I also decide to take on a role that is less aggressive, which is like working in a clinic, in a bariatric clinic, where I'm looking after patients that are outpatients. And with outpatients, it's a little bit more chill. There's not too much action going on. So it gives me a lot more time to do what I have to do for my patients, and I would say a lot more easier compared to inpatients. So it doesn't give me too much stress. It doesn't drain off my brain energy. And so by the time I get home, it's only 8-hour shifts. So by the time I get home, just traditional 4 p.m., that's when I start grinding. I always do time blocks. I'm sure you guys know about all that creative, like scheduling. And you just have to look into your schedule, and whatever that's there, that's like literally empty. You fill that in real estate. So when people tell me they don't have time, I say bullshit because I challenge everyone. I always tell them, when they tell me this, they don't have time. Like we all have 24 hours. We all have 24 hours from the time you go to sleep at, traditionally, I don't know, some people do it at 10 p.m. to the day you wake up at 7:30 to go to work. Wake up earlier and do the grind. do all your, in my case, I wake up really early, like 6 o'clock in the morning. I start looking on MLS, realtor.ca and all that stuff to find properties. And then I go to work afterwards. And then when I come back to work, you have all this time, chunk of time, and then you factor into eating, you factor into like doing your laundry and all that stuff, and then you just fill in all this gap. You'll notice that there are a lot of gaps you can fill in. You can put in real estate in there. And for people who are not into real estate, there's so many time left over you can do for your family, or you can just like take care of your children's. There's time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the like I remember hearing this thing from Joe Rogan, and he was talking about, it was one of those like montage or whatever. I don't even know what the word is, but they had like clipped together all these things, and it's just basically Joe Rogan being inspirational for like 30 minutes. And and he's talking about like, if you don't have the time because you're working or whatever, you have kids, like that 30 minutes or that hour you have, like kind of like a time block, like you're talking about, you better be like highly caffeinated and super motivated and just like laser focused. So it's like some people legitimately don't have as much time as others. Like, obviously when I was single, or even when I was married before we had kids, like I had a lot more time. But it's like, if you don't have that time, then like you said, you have to like block that time and be laser focused. And then I think like accountability is huge too, because it's like, I think if you actually take a real inventory of where you're spending your time, you'll realize how much time you're actually wasting. And like either having a mentor or having a business partner or, spouse, friend, whatever, just to hold you accountable to like, hey, you say you don't have time, but what are you actually doing? And like, are you taking actionable steps? So I think that's huge.
It's a lot of sacrifices,
Yeah.
Absolutely a lot of sacrifice to be an entrepreneur, to be like you guys, I'm sure you guys can relatable to this. Like, we don't watch TV anymore. We don't mindlessly scroll on the social media. This is exactly what I tell people. Just record your day-to-day life. And you'll notice that you'll spend 2 hours scrolling through aimlessly on social media, Instagram, watching random stuff, sports. I know that we need to have some life, but I mean, is there something that you can cut off, like sports? Watching sports. I mean, like, there is time. Wake up early then. If you don't have time, wake up at 5 o'clock.
I'm not necessarily proud of this, but if I'm comparing my life now to what it looked like about 2 years ago, I would routinely Thursday and Friday turn on golf. And we all know golf takes 4 hours to play. But if you're watching golf, it's more like 6 or 8 hours. So I would do that Thursdays, sometimes Fridays, a lot of Sundays. A lot of Sundays I would watch football for 6 to sometimes 12 hours, which I'm not proud of it in any way. But life then compared to life now, like the amount of TV I watch, I'll watch the Packers now because that's my team, but I don't really watch anything else. And some people would rather watch football for 12 hours, and some people, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. If that's what you're into, I think that's fine. Somebody recently recommended The Bear. I think it's this new show, and I was like, don't tell me about any good shows. They're like, no
new shows.
Yeah, they're like, but it's great, and it's like super short episodes. I was like, oh, don't tell me that. That's even worse. They're like, oh no, but it's only
there's 50 of them.
Yeah, they're like, it's only 2 seasons. I was like, oh no, don't tell me that. That means I could just like binge it in like 2 nights and like fly through it. I was like, I can't do anything else. I've got a couple shows. I watch them when they're on, and that's it. I've been like minimal sports, but yeah, it's definitely changed. Like I wasn't quite on Josh's level, but I definitely spent a lot more time in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I was just going to mention how I see you're leading out on some investor meetups up there in Canada. Do you want to talk about what sparked the desire to start something like that and what that looks like now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like the area that I invest in currently, it's a little bit more outskirt than the bigger city. So this is 175,000 population, just 4 hours outside of the big city of where I am living right now. It's in outside of Toronto, 4 hours drive up north. So there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of great business entrepreneurs, locals. And I just find it so beneficial to everybody. I just find it's like a win-win situation for not just my business, but also for their business. I'm literally promoting the community, and also promoting the locals there, and trying to have people to see that there's a city outside of the metropolitan of Toronto that it's a great place to invest, a great place to look into, and a great place to do something big over there. And so by having these network, it's just to connect everybody. It just makes everybody businesses flourish. So I know there's a lot of people that wants to have a meetup, and when I my co-host, that's a local, he lives there and he's doing the same thing what I'm doing. We were brainstorming and we were just saying, like, it'll be nice to do the same thing as what people do in Toronto, having these meetup. And we're just like, well, why don't we just do it here? It's small, but that's okay. That's how it all starts. Small becomes big one day, and we have this grand vision that one day there will be like, if people from Toronto just wants to go up there and invest. So it all starts there. So that's why we started this networking. We have real estate investor from down south. So the way how Ontario structured is that we say the south because most of the people in Canada live in to the south, not just because it's warm, but all the industries are there. So when you start going up north, there's less industry and it gets colder. So we want to bring experts from the down south to come up to north. And we started slowly building our network. And that involves with me doing a lot of networking, finding these experts and pitching the idea, telling them that there's money to be made up north. And I see your credential will be even greater if you go up there. And so slowly we are getting guest speakers coming up there, sharing their expertise, what they've been doing in the South, what they've been doing investing. And they're also learning at the same time what the locals do in the North, because the way how, just like any other cities in across Canada and even in the States, how you practice in Wisconsin is very different in California, how they practice real estate. So we're really blending people together, learning from each other, and hopefully what they learn in the South, they can learn from what they learn from the North, they can bring it back to the South and apply the best practice for real estate. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome to hear your experience with the meetup, because, and it's kind of sounds silly now, but I've kind of had this somewhat of an imposter syndrome, I guess, for starting a meetup, and here we are starting this podcast. So it's like, but I guess it's different in the sense that, like, we're bringing experts or whoever here and asking questions that can benefit others. But I think a meetup's the same thing, and it's like you're bringing people together, and that's so powerful, and probably even more powerful doing it in person. So that's great that you're doing that. One of the things I wanted to ask about, you've done some Spartan races and climbed some mountains. You want to just tell us a little bit about these personal adventures and goals and all these things that you're doing in your personal life as well?
Yeah, so there's more to life than just investing in real estate. I know I shared a lot about my strict schedule and how I do all this stuff, but and I say this very carefully, and I say this very empathetic. Like, I don't want anyone to have to feel like, or pressure that they have to be like me. Um, that's a good thing about abundance. Everyone wants something different. And for myself, I just want to be able to do something. This is my balance. This is my way of taking my mind off real estate. But at the same time, I want to have a good mindset, because real estate, entrepreneurship, whatever you invest in, it's a sport, and it's all about mindset. So for me, doing this is my pleasure, but it also trains my mind. So doing the hard stuff will just callous your mind, so that when you do business, or even anything in life, that's not investing, anything in life, whether you're a nurse, you're going to face challenges, and you need to not run away. You need to charge for it. And for me, doing these extreme sports is not because I'm crazy or anything. It's because, yes, it's fun, but it's also callous my mind. It just reminds me what is hard, and how much accomplishment it is just to charge for it and do the stuff that you don't like and just keep going.
Yeah. And then with those Spartan races, you get shocked by like dangling loose wires too.
So who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah, who wouldn't want to pay money for that? Oh, you didn't get to do that one?
Yeah, that was a new thing. That was a new thing this year. This year it happened.
Oh, really? Somebody told me about that. I was like, excuse me? Like, I'll climb through the mud, I'll go over the walls, I'll run, I'll do all that
Yeah.
stuff. But you want to shock me with just like stray wires?
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because because when you crawl, it hurts your elbow, right? Because there's some rocks underneath the mud, right? And so sometimes you need a break. So you just slightly stand up enough to touch the wire, but not like go crazy or else you get stabbed, right? But then it shocked me. So I'm like, oh shit. I'm just like, this is not cool. I didn't sign up for this. I just like kept going. I just kept going. Just get me out here. Get me out here.
Man.
Do they tell you what the obstacles are going to be before you do the race? Or are you just like surprised?
Tiger?
No, they do tell you, but they do tell you, but it's just that I just got I just decided to just do it. Fuck it, you know.
Just all in.
Tiger pit.
All in.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And you get so much surprises, you're just like, I wish I didn't do this, but just keep going.
Yeah.
So we had a guest on who climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and he did not quite make it to the top. I don't remember what he said he had. He got pulmonary edema or something like that.
I think it was something like yeah. Yeah, he was.
So
did
you make it to the top?
500 feet from the top.
Yeah. So last time I checked, it was close to 56 to 5,700 above sea level. Yeah.
But did you make it?
So
all the way to the top?
I made it to the top.
Oh, okay.
I made it to the top. I feel for your friend because I felt something very. I was lucky I didn't get pulmonary edema, but I self-diagnosed myself, okay, because I started to have symptoms of COVID.
Okay.
So I had fever, I had chills, and I had massive headache, and I was starting to have a little bit hallucination as well too.
Oh, but you made it.
Oh, and yeah, I made it. It was tough, you know. It was tough. I just want to. I think I would love to go back there again with being more well, like physically well and mentally well, going up there and see the difference to see if I'd be faster. But that day when I was doing Kilimanjaro and I had all these symptoms and I wasn't feeling well, I thought I wasn't going to make it. I thought I was going to, but I reached to the point that the helicopter wouldn't come up and get me. So it's either I go down by myself or I just go back up. So I just like, you know what? I'll just go up. F it, you know?
Wow.
And when I got there, I didn't take a lot of pictures because I was just so tired. And I was puking my guts out because of the altitude as well too. So, not to scare everyone, it is possible. There's a very high percentage change. You know, like you guys can do it. You guys can. You guys don't even need to train that much. You guys can do it. It's just it's really will and mental toughness. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can just hire children to carry you back down if you don't make it, right?
Well, the guys had to carry me. Actually, the guy had to carry me. Like two guys were like,
no, I'm just kidding. So I think he mentioned actually, and it's not really actually funny because I actually think he mentioned like a lot of these like not children, were they children? But he was saying like these, I don't know, remember the word, porters Natives. Or something like that. Yeah, like locals that would like run, you know, the gear up and stuff like that. And there's like a high incidence of them actually dying going back and forth up this mountain. So
I have great respect for them. They carry they carry more than 15 kilograms, and that's not including their personal belongings. They're carrying pots and pans. They're carrying this, and they make good food for us. They treat us like they really. I'm very grateful for them. You know, I just have great respect for them. Like the last thing I wanted was like having crappy food. You know, but they made amazing food. It's not because I was hungry, but they absolutely make really good food. And my friends and I, we're all real estate investors actually, and we were just grateful that we had great. They took really good care of me when I was really sick, and they're great people. Huge respect for them, and I don't think there's any strong if anyone that can do like full marathon in Spartan is them.
Well, that's great. I was going to clarify though, for 15 kilograms for those of us in the US, that's about 1,000 pounds, right? No, just kidding.
Okay, yeah, we'll cut that.
All right, so we'll move quickly on, or we'll move on to the final segment of our show we call the Final Four. It's just 4 questions that we ask every guest. And the first one is, what is a top financial resource that you found for nurses?
Top financial resource for nurses. Sorry, just got me stumped there. Like, are we talking about like books and all that stuff?
Yep, books. Just any resource at all, online, podcast, anything that you use routinely.
Your
for
Instagram,
your well-being.
Yeah. Okay. So for top nurses finances, I would start off with finding finances book. With me, I would choose the first. I would choose mindset books. So start with that. So for me, it could be different for everybody, but I would start with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, because it really teaches you the importance of investing. And the second book that's dive into finances, I would start off with. I'm in real estate, so that's why I talk everything in real estate. So for me, I'm in Canada, so it will be Canadian book. Actually, anything from Brandon Turner, The Bigger Pockets, the
Yeah,
book
it's
of
got some
real
good
estate,
stuff.
the BRRRR strategy. I would start learning from that first if you're into real estate. So yeah, I would start
Yeah.
with that resource. And for podcasts, the shout out to the Rise Network podcast. That was the network that I went to, and they opened my eyes and referred me to the coach who I am with to this day. The Rise Network is focused on young investors going into real estate, and the two guys, Austin and Mayu, they're just full of knowledge in not just in the finance world, but also the numbers, accountancy, and all that stuff. So it's very good. So I would start with that and then go from there.
Nice. So the second question is, what would you tell yourself? What bit of advice would you give yourself as a new grad?
As a new grad, I would start learning the philosophy and understanding and being aware of your surrounding in nursing, because nursing is a sport. Be very mindful about what you're learning. Be observant and question why all the time, because there's a lot of things to learn in nursing, and there's a lot of things that you shouldn't be learning. So, but first, understand the fundamentals of what it means to be hard, and also understand that everything will be okay. But you also have to learn to invest into yourself, not just financially, but also physically, mentally, spiritually, and intellectually as well too.
Yeah.
So our third question is, what is your big goal for the next 12 months?
My big goal is launching my cleaning business. So I'm starting to get into more. I'm starting to get into the realm of creating businesses. So, but at the same time, I don't want to steer away from my real estate business, because I love real estate. I talk about it all the time, and I love it. I sleep and I think about it all the time. So I want to find something that's relatable. So I'm very excited that I'll be launching my cleaning business very shortly, and just trying to market it and starting to get tractions and start to help real estate investors with cleaning. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on to talk about that. We didn't cover that today. We kind of ran out of time, but yeah, we'll have you back on at some point and talk about all that.
Yeah, that's an awesome move though. Just build something that benefits you.
Yeah, I can see, because most of my off-market deals are from cleaners.
Oh wow.
Oh,
So that's why I want to get into cleaning, because I want to find my own deals even better.
that's a nice little
genius.
hack there.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of other people that are investing into something you may think is outside real estate, but there's a purpose to it. It's off-market deals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is my off-market deal strategy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the final question of the final four is, if you were going to tell people to do one thing right now to kind of change their financial outlook, what would that one thing be?
Just take action. Just because as soon as we have an idea, it's so easy to become paralysis analysis, because we start to overthink. We start to do too much research. There's nothing wrong with researching. It's just that when you have too much information overload, you become too scared and you don't take action. So take action immediately. Obviously, do some due diligence. It doesn't take long to do diligence, but just you got to do it, or else that dream will fade away.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good stuff. Now as we close this one out, where can everybody find out more about you if they want to follow your story or just reach out to you at all?
Yeah, so I'm very heavily in Instagram, so feel free to reach out to me. My Instagram tag is this is Alvin Wong.
That's pretty simple. we'll plug that in the show notes. So. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been great. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And yeah. And we'll plug any of your info into the show notes too. So if people want to reach out, we'll have all that available for them. But yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks for joining us. We got someone from Canada now, so that's awesome. And for the listeners, like and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube as well. We're on Instagram as well, and go give our friend here, Alvin Wong, a follow on Instagram.
Thanks very much for having me.